Birth of a Dark Hunter. Toa Nikon crept silently through the dark streets of Metru. The night was utterly silent as he adopted home and became a city of the dead. Even the shadows seemed touched by the fear that gripped Metru Nui. He started to summon a small flame, then stopped. Targa Duma had warned him about betraying his position through the use of powers. The enemy would track back to the source of the flame. If he were caught too far from the Colosseum, well, he would have seen what was left over of the Toa who would have gotten care of this. You can afford a mistake or two against a Rahi beast, he reminded himself, but not against these opponents, as all they need is the slightest opening, and a sound came from above, the metal scraping against stone, no doubt from one of the rooftops. An ambush. Dark Hunters were more than capable of that, and worse. Recon activated his mask of shielding, throwing a force field around himself, and readied his fire greatsword. Whoever, or whatever, was after him was in for a surprise. A familiar mask appeared over the edge of the roof. Relax, brother, it's me. Toa Nidhiki leaped forward beside his comrade. His emerald armor was scarred and pitted from countless battles. "Oh, midnight walks now," he whispered. "What's the matter? The war not giving you enough exercises?" "You were supposed to stay in the Colosseum with the others," Nikon replied. "I got bored. Besides, the 6 Toa on guard, 1 Turaga should be enough." Not if I'm right," said Nikon, his expression grim. Not if he's been targeted by who I think. Half a legion could soon be in that building, and he still would not be safe. Beneath his Konohi mask of stealth, Nidhiki flashed a smile. "You worry too much, brother. You always have. Remember, the tops of all those Metru knowledge towers have been shattered. You were such the Konohi dragon was back. Turned out to be ice bats with the attitude." "Then humor me," said Nikon. "I'm not going west and circling around. You go north. Use your mask to stay out of sight. And for Metru Nui's sake, if you see Dark Hunters, go for the help this time." "You take all the fun out of constant violence, Nikon," Nidhiki chuckled, already fading into shadows. Toa Nidhiki wandered through the broad avenues of Metru, past temples and schools of canals. All of the Metru in the city was at least his favorite. It just seemed so clean and ordinary. He got the feeling that a little water sloshed onto the street. They would call half a dozen Vaki patrols and declare a Metru-wide emergency. He had long ago shut down his mask of stealth, which allowed him to travel in a ghost-like form, barely visible and completely silent. As effective as the mask was, he found it disconcerting not being able to hear his own footsteps. Nikon would have called his action taking unnecessary risk, but Nidhiki was seriously doubted that any Dark Hunter would be caught dead in a picture-perfect sky blue, oh-so-proper pit of a Metru. Something scuttled through the shadows to his right. He jumped a little at the sight of the shoot spider heading off its night hunt. It was something that he would never admit to his brother Toa, but Nidhiki had always been a morbid disgust of shoot spiders, Nui Jaga, Nui Rama, and anything insectoid. Were it up to him, Metru Nui would have been plunged into a multi-legged crawling thing a long time ago. Nidhiki waited until the spider was out of sight before moving on, a little more cautiously than before. It was only an extra bit of wariness that allowed him to spot the figure that fluttered to shadow. It was the first time he had seen anyone and who seemed at home in the shadows as he did. Intrigued, he followed. Two things rapidly became apparent. First was his quarry wasn't a Toa. She wore no Konohi mask and she was much too good at slipping unseen and heard through the night. Toa, as a general rule, not very good at sneaking. It went against their image of being proud and public heroes. Nidhiki was an exception to that rule. Where he came from, Toa struck the shadows, or they did not live very long. The second was her destination. She was on direct course to the southwest toward the Colosseum. Normally, it would have worried Nidhiki not to the kind of security around the place, but if this was a Dark Hunter, it was good enough to make it inside. And then, who knows what to Taragaduma. Nidhiki stopped, unlimbered his scythe, aimed for where she would be, not where she was. Then he unleashed a focused hurricane strike of weight at his target. She never turned. She never cried out. She simply leaped aside as like a soft-tossed coated ball at her. She landed silently and spun in his direction. Her smile was a challenge. "I appreciate that little breeze," she said softly. "Hunting is hot work." "Then maybe you need a little more chilling," he replied. And this time he sent elemental air power to both sides of his tool, bracketing her. To his amazement, she did a somersault from a standing start, never evading the two blasts before she had even reached her feet. She hurled two daggers at him. One whisked past his mask, while the other sliced his right shoulder armor as it flew by. "I guess they don't teach dodging in Toa training," the female Dark Hunter said. "No wonder your city is falling." Nidhiki glanced at the new gash in his emerald armor to his foe. She had missed on purpose. She was certain that with her aim, she wanted to kill him. He would be dead. "Not my city," he replied, "but a place I'm protecting just the same." "Oh, a matter of honor." Nidhiki paused before answering. "Let's say no better offers." He took his eyes to a fraction of a second to ready his scythe. When he looked back up, she was gone, vanished like a wisp in smoke in the night. Nidhiki stood completely still, not even breathing, his legs tense, ready to spring. A veteran of 1,000 fights, he knew better than to panic. Not knowing where she was, any move he made could be a wrong one. He mentally triggered his mask and disappeared into the shadows. "Oh, you're good." Her voice was coming from above. She perched among the chutes, watching, as if it was a perfect hiding place. A wind strong enough to dislodge her would bring the chute brace down on his head, while climbing up after her would be nothing short of suicide. "I could kill you now, Toa," she continued, "but I failed to fill my quota today, so I'm just going to leave you here and finish off your precious Taraga. If you're too scared of the dark, well, you probably should be." Nidhiki kept silent until another dagger buried itself in the wall behind him. "Don't stay quiet on my account," the Dark Hunter said. "I already know where you are. I can smell your fear." Toa forced himself to relax. He had been in tough spots before and talked his way out of them. This was just one more. "You'll never make it. It's too well guarded." "Watch me, unless you have a better plan. We're on opposite sides, remember? We don't have to be." Her voice was above him now. He whirled around, but he could still see her. "How many Toa did you start out with? 100, 200? And what do you have left? Maybe a few dozen. The Dark Hunters have half of the city, and will soon have the other half. When it's over, you'll just be one more mask in the pile." The words struck hard. Months since Taragaduma had refused the Dark Hunters a base on Metru Nui, countless Toa had fallen. Most were struck down from the shadows, never knowing their enemy was there. Oh, there had been some victories. Nidhiki had routed more than to share his enemy. Lee Khan was worth 6 Toa in a battle, but they all knew the numbers were against them. It was only a matter of time. "If you want to die, I'll be more than happy to oblige," she added. "But if you want to live, something might be arranged." A long moment went by, and then Nidhiki lowered his scythe. Seconds later, the Dark Hunter, known as Lariska, dropped to to the ground in front of him. She had her daggers at the ready. "The shadowed one, my employer, is always looking for new talent," she said. "Help us capture the Colosseum, and you can name your price." "Who's going to tell?" he asked himself. "The Toa will all be dead. The Tauren, they'll believe whatever they are told to believe, and the Dark Hunters, right, like anyone's going to listen to them." "Metru Nui," he said firmly, I'll give you Doom, Lekon, and the rest if I get the city to rule. That's my price, take it or leave it." Lariska grinned. "Actually, I think my choices are taken. It or kill you, whenever you stand. But I'll let that pass. Meet me here tomorrow night and I'll give you our answer." The next day lasted for about an eternity. Nidhiki spent his time wandering around the hall of the Colosseum, imagining himself in control of it all. Now and then he felt a little twinge of guilt over what he was about to do. But then he reminded himself that it was Doom's fault and the other Toa's fault for ever thinking that they had a chance against the Dark Hunters. As the twin sun set, Lekon approached. "Nidhiki, are you there? There's a boat coming from the south carrying supplies. I need you to meet it." "Sure," Nidhiki replied, grateful for an excuse to slip away. "I can't have a surge of better edge without supplies, right?" He left before Lekon could answer. "It's a deal," said Lariska. "Tomorrow you can lead Lekon and the Colosseum to guard the canyon of the unending whispers in Metru. We'll be scattered in the caves and foothills. Once it's over, I'm going to take care of Duma personally. The city will be yours, Nidhiki. What do you plan to do with it?" Nidhiki sat down on the bench, stretched his legs. "Maybe you should stick around, Lariska, and find out." Nidiki's news struck the Colosseum like a lightning bolt. The Dark Hunters had established a base in the Metru Canyon. All their operations were being coordinated there. One swift strike and the war would be over. But we'll need every Toa we can muster," he told Lekon. "We can't afford to lose this opportunity because we left some behind to guard the Colosseum." Lekon looked at Doom. The Turaga nodded. "Nidhiki speaks the truth. We may never have such a chance again." "All right," said Lekon. "I'll assemble the guard. We'll move out at once." Less than 15 minutes later, they were all on the march. 100 Toa with Lekon and Nidhiki at the lead. Clouds of dust kicked up under their armored feet. They traveled well-worn paths around Metru. Each of them had lost a brother or sister Toa in the war. They all wanted it to end, but not before they had made the Dark Hunters pay for their crimes. Side by side, they marched towards the canyon of unending whispers. They clanged to their footsteps that echoed again and again. The sun baked the barren rock as far as the eye could see. A few Rahi flyers swooped down and dove into the bright sky of Dark Hunter Base Camp, where there was no sign. "Where is it?" demanded Lekon, turning to Nidhiki. "You said that the war could end today." "And so it will," replied the Toa of air all around. Dark Hunters rose from their hiding places, weapons assembled at the heroes. "Sorry it had to end this way, brother." Lekon shook his head. "Not as half as sad as I am. Don't call me brother again." The entire Toa of Fire's arms shot up suddenly. The Toa rose from the tops of the canyon wall. Dozen, 100, 200, and still more. There was nothing nearly aimed. Their tools now surrounded the Dark Hunters. The hunters were now hunted, and they looked at Lariska for guidance. She assessed the odds and shrugged and dropped her daggers and rose. "Very neat," she said to Nidhiki. "You had me fooled." Lekon shoved Nidhiki toward the Dark Hunter lines. "He didn't deceive you. I thought he wished he had." How did you know?" the Toa of Air asked his former friend. "The other night, the boat carrying supplies," Lekon replied. "You left without asking and where it was docking. Then I went after you to give you the information and stumbled on with your meeting with your deadly new friend. And all these new Toa, the supplies were as we promised for the south. with the Dark Hunter eyes and ears everywhere. Duma and I thought that it was best not to talk of reinforcements out loud. Once I knew what you were planning, I ordered them to spring a trap of our own. And now what? Asked Larissa. Do you march us all into the sea? The Toa of Fire met her gaze, his eyes cold. A messenger was sent to the Shadowed One before you even reached the canyon. You were allowed to walk here in the same way you walked to provide Nidhiki with the Dark Hunters to leave Metru Nui and never come back. He turned and pointed at Nidhiki, starting with him. Nidiki's expression was one in disbelief. If go with them, but I'm a Toa, Lekon. I'm your brother in arms. Lekon turned his back on the treacherous Toa of air. No, you're not. You lost the right to call me brother when you betrayed us all. Get out, Nidhiki. Out of my sight and out of the city. Get out before I kill you. Nidhiki sat on a branch, watching the team of Dark Hunters train. Their mission was to penetrate the heavy defended island and steal a stone called the Makoki. He didn't know what the details, but apparently the Shadowed One intended to split the rock up into 6 pieces, thus making 6 times the profit in ransacking it back. The Dark Hunter squad was, for the most part, professional and efficient. They made it over around every obstacle Nidhiki had set up, and efficiently eliminated any target of dummies that had popped up. All of them, and that is, except for the one big brute who lacked any resemblance of style or strength. After watching him demolish a barrier, he was supposed to slip quietly under. Nidhiki had seen enough. Kreka, he snapped. You just woke up every Toa for Kaios around. The Toa of Fire has spotted your team, and you're about to be the guest of honor. At a Dark Hunter bake, what are you going to do? The Blue Dark Hunter pondered for a long time and smiled and said brightly, Smash him! He's up there, Nidhiki said, pointing to the non-existent fortresses, and you're down here. Kreka looked up to where his instructor was indicating, but saw nothing. He's up there. Did he run away? No, why don't you? Because I like it here. Without another word, Nidhiki stalked off. It was time for the Shadowed One to have a talk. They're ready, Nidhiki reported. All of them, the blue fool, keep him here and send me away, and I'll get your rock for you, I promise. The Shadowed One smiled but did not look up. And we all know your pledges are worth, don't we, Toa, Nidhiki? Nidhiki restrained himself from saying what came to mind. He's seen how the Shadowed One dealt with insubordination. Instead, he tried a different approach. I know how the Toa think. I know how they will try to defend the stone. I should be going on to their mission. Your knowledge of former allies makes you a valuable trainer for me to risk losing, said the Shadowed One, not even trying to sound convincing. Kreka goes, you stay. Nidhiki felt fury rising in him. In the 6 months since he had come to the Shadowed One's island, he had done nothing to help prepare the other Dark Hunters for missions. His wandering around the rocks and staring in the ocean. If there was such a thing as a Toa of boredom, he would be it. And now it passed over for the hulking, clumsy mass of muscle. It was too much. He's a moron, he thought through clenched teeth. That got the Shadowed One's attention. He locked his eyes on Nidhiki and rose to his full height. His voice sounded like ice breaking. And you're a traitor. You turned your back on your ideals, your friends, your city, all to save your own worthless hide. Why would you ever think I would trust you, Nidhiki? The Toa of Air had nothing to say. After all, the Shadowed One was correct. He had turned against everyone that relied on him. The Toa didn't want him, and the Dark Hunters were just using him for his knowledge. He belonged nowhere. But I am not without appreciation of your talents, the Shadowed One continued. So perhaps you are right. Perhaps you would serve best in this world beyond this island. I assume you want only the most dangerous missions. Nidhiki smiled, hardly able to believe the Shadowed One had come around his way of thinking. Those ones are the greatest reward. Indeed too dangerous for any Dark Hunter to do alone. You will need a partner. Fortunately, the very one the job help is waiting outside of my chamber. Nidhiki turned to the door, confident he knew who was about to walk through, and Lariska had come close with companions of the disaster of Metru Nui. There was no one better to team up with him. The door opened, and Nidhiki started to say her name, and then the sound died with his throat. Standing in the doorway, in fact, so bored he had cracked the doorway, it was Kreka. "Tell me the plan again?" Kreka started to reply, then stopped, as he thought his head had just flown away like a hungry gecko bird. He looked lost in the moment, then he suddenly brightened as he remembered what Nidhiki was about to hear. "We get there. I keep quiet and trying to look scary." He went and find the spot. "I smash open the gate. You go inside. I stay outside." "Why?" asked Nidhiki. "Because you said to." "Then what?" This is the fourth time Nidhiki had to run Kreka through the plan, to start to finish, and he would do it for 4 times if he had to. 4 more times if he had to. "You smash up the place and then come out. We'll even come back here. Your turn. The weapons are all over the Shadow One, and I keep my mouth shut." And Nidhiki frowned, "and no one gets hurt." "Okay," said Kreka. "I always forget that part." And it was a fairly straightforward job. Some Matoran on a nearby island had developed a new kind of launcher. No one knew what it was meant to fire, but the Shadow One wanted it anyway. Supposedly, there was only a few models in existence. One of them was stolen, and the equipment was used to create them to smash the bits. It would be a while before any more could be built. There were problems, of course. There were the Toa on the island, but Lariska had agreed to go ahead and set up a diversion. The Matoran posted guards around the village, but no one could cover the access point, which involved a climb up a sheer cliff. They assumed no one could get up that way. They had never met Kreka. The big blue Dark Hunter slammed his fist into the side of the cliff, creating an instant handhold. He began to climb, punching holes in the rock as he did so. Nidhiki came up after him, and were halfway up when Nidhiki realized something was very wrong. "Wait a minute, Kreka," he said. "I thought Lariska said you could fly." Kreka responded with his usual look of puzzlement. Then he nodded. "Oh, that's right, I forgot. If I pushed him off this cliff, no one would ever know." Nidhiki grumbled to himself. "And I would too, except the Shadow One said I'm responsible for his well-being." Kreka walked quickly to the door of armory and smashed it down with one swing, then obediently stopped. He turned around and allowed Nidhiki to get in alone. The launchers were easy to find, 3 of them, but Nidhiki grabbed only one for transport, and back to the Shadow One's island. Then he dug a hole into the rocky floor of the building and placed the other 2 inside. No one would ever think to look for the stolen goods, the very place from which they were stolen. Now Nidhiki knew where they were. He could come back and grab any time. After all, he might have use of them someday that the Shadow One would not approve of. He was just beginning to fill a hole in the shadow of Kreka fell on him. "What are you doing?" asked the big Dark Hunter. "I told you to stay outside." I just remembered the Shadow One said that I have to stay with you all the time on the job," Kreka answered her. "What are you doing, Nidhiki?" "What does it look like I'm doing? Listen, Kreka, we'll bring one back to the Shadow One, and then we'll keep the others for the two of us. As wouldn't you like a new toy to play with?" Kreka shook his head. "The Shadow One says everything goes back to him. Nothing gets left." "Kreka!" The Shadowed One says no, Kreka said, slamming his fist into the wall. The whole building shook as it might come down on top of them. Worse, the volume of his voice was attracting Matoran attention, and Nidhiki could hear guards coming on the way. He had been told to make sure the Dark Hunter's involvement in theft was kept secret, and now it was in jeopardy. "Alright," said Nidhiki, gathering up the 3 launchers and wishing he could use them on Kreka, "but just because you asked so nicely." Nidhiki spotted a stranger walking toward the stone courtyard of the Shadowed One's fortress. Tall and powerful, jet-black armor, she moved like a serpent. Her eyes darted from left to right. She was new, and anything new on the island was always an interest of him. "I wouldn't," said Dariska. She had appeared beside him, ever being aware that she was near. "She's trouble." "What kind?" "She wants Dark Hunter trading and she's willing to pay, but she's not joining. She says she has plans of her own, and the Shadowed One is giving her a few hours to change her mind, and then she's going to be sent back where she came from. And all she needs is our skill. So her involvement in theft, murder, and betrayal," Nidhiki muttered. "Sounds like some kind of evening." Before Dariska could stop him, he was on his way to greet the new arrival. "Get out of my way." Nidhiki didn't move as he found the newcomer's name was Rudaka. Have a precious little else about her. Still, she could make a few educated guesses about the best way to confirm that it was face to face. "If you can tell if she's got a face," he noted. "Just trying to make you feel welcome," he said lightly. "That's a very friendly island we have here. They're heavily defended. It's home to several killers, unfairly lethal to trespassers, but friendly." Rudaka started to push past him. "I have no friends." He blocked her again. Then how about a business partner? Listen, I've been stuck on this rock for over a year now. The only time to get off is when I send someone on an errand. With a drooling fool, I want out of here. And this concerns me. How? You're looking to get hired by someone, or you're already working for them," Nidhiki replied. "Someone who needs to bring my kind of talent. Introduce me if I'm going to get in. I'll see your reward." Rudaka nodded. And when she spoke again, it was an inseparable tone. And what kind the Shadowed One would want other Dark Hunters? Nidhiki shrugged. "They will keep doing what they do, and I'm meant for bigger things. I am a Toa, and I should be running the pushy islands like this, not working on them." And the tall Elboni figure smiled. "Well, I think we can do business together. Meet me at the dark and the full of darkness. We'll conclude our arrangement then." Midnight found Nidhiki standing on the water's edge. And the island was silent, much like Metru Nui had been a year before. The night had been he met Dariska. He hadn't told her about his meeting with Rudaka or his plans to leave the island. She wouldn't have understood. She was a Dark Hunter. By profession of nature, the notion that in some part of his heart he was still himself as a Toa. He would have been laughable to her. She was too short-sighted, he decided. Her horizon had stopped in the borders of the island. He still had to lean a powerful look on the Toa. He had the Toa's powers. He would have to do and find some island where they would never heard of Lekon or Doom or Metru Nui, and the population would line up and welcome him. And anything he wanted would be his, and maybe he might even be a hero again. After all, look at the part, he reminded himself. Of course it won't matter if Rudaka doesn't show up soon. He stared out of the ocean, wondering about his past and future. He remembered the first time he saw Metru Nui. It was the day he and a handful of other Toa arrived, and he answered to the summons to help fight the Kanoki dragon. And they were strangers to each other. but brothers the same. They all shared responsibilities and risks of being Toa. It was a special bond, nothing like the Dark Hunters had shared. To Nidhiki's surprise and dismay, he found he missed it. Surely maybe they weren't really his friends. Maybe they were too quick to turn on him. Instead of trying to understand why he did what he did, maybe he couldn't see past their jealousy and resentment of only the Toa smart enough to look after himself. If it wasn't for me, the war would still be going on, he reminded himself. The Shadow One would be sitting in the Colosseum right now. But do I get gratitude? No, I get exiled. Well, I'll find a place where they need Toa and aren't too practical, all that kind. And if one of those Metru Nui heroes tries to take it away from me, I'll make them regret the day they put on a Kanohi. All I need is for Udaka to help me get what I deserve. Rotuka spinners being pure energy made little noise when they fly. Even if the one Udaka launched had, Nidhiki would have never heard it over the noise of his own thoughts. All he knew was that the black pain when it struck, the world was spinning in front of him, a bizarre sensation of muscles shifting, altering, becoming something alien. It lasted for 6 seconds. To Nidhiki, it lasted an eternity. When it was over at last, he walked. No, he wasn't walking, at least not like before, to the water's edge. All he could see was the dark waves. Let us help. A voice belonged to the Shadow One. A moment later, the entire beach was bathed in torchlight, and Nidhiki could see his reflection in the water. He screamed for a very long time. Udaka watched with amusement as Nidhiki tried to master his new body. He was stumbling around the sand, trying to move like a Toa, but a prisoner of the monstrous form of her mutation spinner had given him. She turned to the Shadow One. I can assume I have purchased my training, she asked. Most definitely, the Shadow One replied. He thought again how amazed her powers seemed to be. The D's head and arms had changed their shape. Most grotesque of all, his lower body now resembled that of a huge four-legged insect. The sight was so much even more for some assembled Dark Hunters. The Oriska had already fled back to the fortress. You really should have known, the Shadow One said to Nidhiki. Udaka wanted something from me. She attempted to use her report of her conversation to buy it. But I insisted on more. If you were still deluding yourself, you could go back to being a Toa. That you could wash away your stain of treachery off in the spirit that easily. I was going to strip that dream of you once and for all. The Shadow One laughed. A harsh and grating sound. You're a monster, Nidhiki. But torn seeing you would run screaming. And you'll never be cheered. You'll never be admired. You'll never be hailed as a savior by the crowds. What are you now? A Toa of nightmares, a hero, Nidhiki, or a whore? No, I think you will find your places now and forevermore with the Dark Hunters. For who else would have you? Nidhiki's eyes blazed with hatred. The Shadowed One paid no heed. Instead, he simply smiled and put his hand to the ex-Toa's shoulder. It's ironic, in a way, said the leader of the Dark Hunters. Your friend Nikon could have ended your misery back on Metru Nui. He chose not to. No doubt he thought that he was doing you a favor when he allowed you to leave unharmed with us. The Shadowed One turned away and walked, saying, Someday you really should thank him properly. One by one, Udaka and the others departed. No one spoke a word of mourning for the Toa who had just died, and no one spoke a word of welcome for the Dark Hunter that had just been born. The end.